Hello and welcome back to the Fighting Talk 2 channel. It is a glorious day because we have all three legs of the tripod are here. We have the eloquent analyst, Prath. Thank you very much for joining us back on the show. How are we doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Feeling rested. Good to join you boys again.
Rested and ready. Obviously, you had a birthday at the weekend as well, so hopefully you're not still hanging from that. Happy birthday.
Little bit. Thank you, man. Thank you. Getting
No
old,
drama.
getting another trip around the sun, but happy to be here with you boys.
That's it. And we'll keep doing this for another couple of birthdays, I promise you. And then we have in casual corner, as always, the armchair warrior, the casual man himself, George. You're not doing the curtains today, George. I don't see no middle parting today. What's going on?
I'm getting there, but I've got to go for a haircut soon, apparently, according to people close to me here at home. So, yeah, I've got a little bit of one going on. But, yeah, I'm all good, man. Yeah, I'm all good.
Good man, good man. We like it. We like to see it. It's nice. It's nice. So, without further ado, we obviously have UFC 262 coming up this weekend. It's looking like a very, very good card. We've obviously had something fall off very, very recently. We're recording this on a Monday evening, and we've just had Edson Barboza. No, not Barboza. Sorry. Who came off the show? Shabazian versus Hermansson. Sorry, it's Hermansson, Barboza. They sound the same to me. Anyway, that's just fallen off, which is very unfortunate. It's a fight we were all looking forward to with these two gentlemen coming out here. But we crack on, and no doubt we will lose. Hopefully not. We pray to the MMA gods. Hopefully not, but we may lose another couple of fights until we get to the weekend. We just don't know. I think, you know what? We were all so gifted, and we're also blessed for having 261. And I don't think anything fell off of that. And we had 260 as well, which both them cards were glorious. So we should just be, you know, don't live in the past too much, but happy days we had them, right?
I suppose.
I agree.
Not too sure.
I thought my luck for my birthday kind of sucked because we had the TJ fight fall off. Like that was the big one over the weekend that just like really sucked the soul out of that card for me. And I know you guys covered it and did a really great episode on it, but just like, God, I don't know about the rest of you guys that were watching it, but I struggled to stay awake.
Yeah,
it was painful.
You know, if we had Amanda Hebas on there, it would have kept me awake just a little bit later, but she obviously fell off as well, unfortunately. They've rebooked that happy days. Nevertheless, we'll get back straight into it for 262. We've got quite a lot going on this weekend. We've obviously got Charlie Olives, Mr. Dubronx himself taking on Iron Mike Chandler. It looks to be a very, very great fight between these two guys. And his second fight in the UFC, he's coming in and he's fighting for the belt. Prath, what do you think about these two guys fighting for the belt after, you know, I mean, Charlie Olives has apparently only beaten a couple of bums recently. I don't think so. But has he got a padded record? I don't know. He's got a lot of wins. He's got a good win streak. Michael Chandler's obviously coming in. And his second fight in the UFC after beating Dan Hooker in dramatic fashion. How do you feel about this being for the title?
Being for the title, I don't really mind it, knowing that Dustin and Conor are going to go off and do their trilogy fight and that not be for the title. I think it would have been a fallacy if Dustin versus Conor was for the title, even though we all believe that Dustin does deserve to be one half of this title fight. I think Dustin's taking the right approach here by saying, you know, I can come here, make this money and fight for the title afterwards. Like it's a no-brainer for me.
Only, you know,
wins and, you know, barring a catastrophic injury. Now, once again, rest in peace to my guy, Mr. Weidman. You know, you never know when something like that will happen. So, you know, touch wood, touch all the wood that nothing like that crazy happens again. But I do believe like these are the other two guys that deserve to be in that title fight if it was going to be anyone. Obviously, you know, I would love for Mike Chandler to come in and have a couple of more fights, but I understand, you know, with his reputation being the way that it is, you know, long-standing Bellator fighter, and, you know, he's one of those guys that has come over and made the transition, you know, won his first fight. Most of these guys don't end up tend to win their first fight. Eddie Alvarez being an example, comes in, fights Cowboy Cerrone, loses that first fight, but still maintains his momentum and then wins the title eventually. And this is different from Mike Chandler. He's came in, he had a massive knockout win against someone that's credible, you know, someone that the fans absolutely know that if you beat Dan Hooker, you deserve to be in the top of the division. And I don't think anyone will argue with that. So I do believe these two are the best other choices outside of Dustin Poirier to be fighting for this title. I don't know. Are you asking me kind of what I was looking at the fight itself, or are you just kind of like, does this fight make sense?
I was just asking if you thought that it was right that this was for the belt. You've covered that, and now we're going to move to the bottom, and we're going to start, and we're going to make our way from the bottom all the way to the top again, and go through the card as we usually do. I just wanted to get your 2 cents on if you thought it was right that they were fighting for the belt. To be honest with you.
I think it is. I think I would speak for George and say that these are the 2 other guys that do deserve to fight it outside of Dustin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, just quickly on this, Michael Chandler's been a clever motherfucker. He's been sweet talking the shit out of people for the last 6 months. And then he knew that if he knocked out Dan Hooker, he could then go, well, look, we've been getting on so well, UFC. I need a title fight. Come on. Like, Poirier wants the cash. He wants the dough with Conor. Charlie Olives is on a big fight win streak. Let's put that together for the belt. It's all worked out very well. He was doing it for months. He was doing it. He weighed in for the Khabib Gaethje thing. He sweet talked the media. He's basically been a yes man for the last 6 months, but it's worked. It's worked, and he's in a title fight. So yeah, fair play. But yeah, we'll talk about that, the actual fight later on.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Now, George, while we've got you in a hot seat here, what are you looking forward to on this card? Because I believe there is a UK prospect on this card as well that you're looking forward to seeing at this weekend, right?
Yeah, man. Anyone out of Team Carbon, you got to get excited about. And obviously, Mike Grundy is going to be on the card. I don't think Darren Till is flying out for this one to be in his corner like he usually does. So, he's not the same corner as usual. I guess because Till's injured and all this kind of stuff, he's staying at home and doing whatever crazy shit he gets up to. But yeah, man, I love Mike Grundy, and I've really, mostly when I think about Mike Grundy, I just feel sorry for Mike Grundy because it's like, when was the last time he actually fought? Like, he's had so many fights drop off, and it's like, you're just waiting between now and Saturday, like, to kind of be told, like, that this fight has fallen off somehow and he's not going to be fighting. But he's looking pretty good at the moment, touch wood. I think he's in Vegas now with the guys, and yeah, I'm just ultimately, when I think about Mike Grundy, I'm just pleased that he's back in there. He's got a good fight this weekend against what's he called? What's he fucking called?
Lando Verna.
Lando Verna.
I think it's like 12-5, so it's a pretty similar matchup in that kind of sense. And yeah, man, I'm just pleased to see him back. It's been a long time coming, and it's good to see another scouser inside the cage on Saturday.
Absolutely, man. What do you make of his opponent then? Do you think that do you think the UFC have matched him up so that they can this is going to be a bouncing fight or what?
Well, I will absolutely love to talk about Lando Verna because I think he was one of those guys that had a lot of momentum behind him. I think after his first fight into the UFC was against Tony Ferguson, and he put on an incredible fight against him, almost finished Tony Ferguson, and Tony Ferguson, to his credit, and when he was like at his tip top, was just able to walk through the fire and still win. So credit to Tony Ferguson, but credit to Lando Verna coming in and having a great fight. Also had a incredible spinning back kick knockout against John Makdessi through like a push kick to his leg and then spun and through like the most amazing spinning wheel kick you'll ever see in fight sports. And right next to Edson Barbosa's one, I would say, as one of the greatest of all time. So I do think it's going to be a tight fight. I know Mike Grundy has an incredible Olympic wrestling background. I don't know quite what level he managed to get to. I don't know if he managed to go all the way to the Olympics or if he was, at world championships or things of that nature. Like, I'd love to know a little bit more about his credentials in that sense. So I think it's going to be kind of like a classic striker versus grappler. Looks like Grundy's going to come in and be the grappler, Verna being the striker, and we're going to have a great fight. Very counteractive style. So we're probably going to see a lot of wrestling. We're going to probably see a lot of cage work, hoping that Lando is able to shuck him off and make it a little bit more of a competitive fight.
Yeah.
Also, we need Mike Grundy to win because if UFC London's happening this summer, we need as many British fighters on the card as possible. So come on, Mike. Come on, son. Get a win on Saturday.
That's it. Has he got a nickname? Has Mike Grundy got a nickname? What's his ring name?
Don't know.
Nothing? The ugly bastard Grundy? Who said that? Who
I
said
mean,
that?
if he gets a wrestling win and cruises to a decision, it could be like Mike grind him out Grundy.
Could be.
That's it. I've given it to
Tweet
him now.
Tweet him and tell him that's his
Yeah,
new
I'll let
nickname.
him know. I'll let him know. But no. Prath, what are you looking forward to on this card? Obviously, we've got a couple of other fights on the prelims. We have the return of the younger Shawshenko, right?
Yeah. There's a on the prelim card. So you got the early prelim cards, the middle prelim cards, and the main card.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I always really like to look at the middle prelim cards because they do kind of highlight a lot of the guys that they want to see as those next potential stars. And this is one of the better preliminary cards I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
You got Andrea Lee versus Antonina Shawshenko. Andrea Lee being a former LFA champion, Antonina Shawshenko, the younger sister of the most crazy great MMA fighters that we have in our women's division. So interesting fight. Antonina hasn't been able to replicate quite the success that Valentina's had in her fights. So it'd be interesting to see if she's able to sort of gain some momentum and go forward. Andrea Lee is a tough fight. She's a great striker, throws a lot of head kicks, very has a wide variety of attacks. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of game plan she comes in with. And the other fight that really interests me on the prelim cards, on Wikipedia, it's touting this as a bantamweight fight, but I believe that these two gentlemen are flyweight fighters and top 10 UFC flyweight fighters. You got Matt Schnell versus Rogerio Bontorin.
Mm-hmm.
Matt Schnell coming from the Ultimate Fighter series, where he was on the Demetrius Johnson, where they were fighting to have a title fight against Demetrius Johnson, and did very well on that season, I believe. I remember him kind of standing out as one of the more top tier fighters of that season. So great to see him on this card and making some noise against someone who is also just a great striker, great jiu-jitsu. I believe this gentleman's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I wouldn't be surprised if he isn't. But also, coming off of the KO, he had the fight against Kai Kara France where he got KO'd, but it was like a very close fight. Put Kai Kara France in a lot of different submission positions.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see if he comes out and is able to kind of actually seal the deal this time against someone who is a very, very talented flyweight fighter who has a great grappling background as well. So clash of styles here. So it'll be an interesting fight. And then obviously topping that prelim card is the veteran legend of the UFC, Jacare Souza, Alligator, one of my favorite fighters. You know me as a guy that loves Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, advocates for it, and you're talking about one of the greatest BJJ competitors within the UFC, alongside Damian Maia, in my opinion, as the two best jiu-jitsu competitors within them. So really interested to see how he bounces back. I know he's on a couple of fights where he kind of won and lost. So be interesting if Jacare can get some momentum. I know he's getting into his later stages of life now as well. So one of those ones where if he loses a couple of fights, then he will also be shipped off to Bellator, PFL. Like, no offense. That's where a lot of these guys are going. Anthony Pettis, Yoel Romero, Rumble Johnson. Where a lot of these guys are going because they are in their late 30s, and the UFC is kind of wanting to have, I guess guys that are 21, 22, they're about to have Diego Sanchez fight. So, double standards, but we'll push past that. It's all good. So yeah. Interesting prelim card. Really, really love it. Sometimes they either go absolutely over the top and book like an incredible prelim card, or it's like the driest prelim card. So I'm really, really happy that this is going to be one of the better ones that I've seen and that we will see.
Yeah, definitely. And because, being in the UK, this is a very, very late one for us as well. I believe the early prelims start at like 11, prelims start at 1, main event at 3. It's going to be a 6, 7 o'clock finish, right? So it's going to be a late one. So with these kind of cards for us, especially over in the UK and in Europe particularly, there needs to be some fireworks early on. And I think the UFC are very aware of that. And they put these kind of very, very kind of, I don't know, well, on paper, they're supposed to be, eye-opening fights in the kind of middle prelims to kind of spark the rest of the world that's not America and go, oh, wow, look, I'm awake now. It's 3 a.m., but there's some stuff going on, which is why they've obviously got Edson Barboza on the main event as well. This guy is absolutely crazy. George, you looking forward to this fight?
Man, I've already heard that Dana's already paid out fight of the night checks to these two boys. This is going to be violence personified. They ain't coming to mess about, these two. And I love Shane Burgos. I love this guy, man. This guy is a top contender coming through, and he's pitching up against a proper veteran who's still hanging in there big time as well. He ain't like a veteran who's on the way out. He's still cracking on happy days. And this is going to be basically what they've decided is at UFC, they've just decided that they're going to get two guys who are just going to absolutely annihilate one another, and they're going to lock them inside a cage 15 minutes, and we're all going to get the pleasure of watching it. And they must have been, but oh man, when this fight got announced, I was buzzing. I was so excited for it. I can't wait. This is the fight of the night easily. Now I've said all this, it'll be complete dog shit, won't it? But I know it'll be total rubbish. I can't fail. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, this fight cannot fail to entertain me. It's impossible. These two absolutely bring it every time. They're relentless. And I 100% believe this is going to be the perfect start to the main card. So when you're feeling a bit tired at 3 a.m., this is going to wake you the hell up big time. And you know what? I'm taking my guy. He's in crush corner. Shane Burgos is going to beat Edson Barboza and push himself further up those rankings towards the big boys, the big sharks in the tank in that division.
It's always very, very, I don't know, sometimes it can be so underwhelming, can't it? We kind of hype a fight up. Everyone gets super excited about a fight, and then it ends up like Dada 5000 versus Kimbo Slice. You know, when one of them has a heart attack halfway through the fight and they both just fall over at the end. Both of these guys are going to bring fireworks, and fingers crossed it is going to be absolute fireworks, as you say, man. But it's so frustrating when it doesn't happen. You know, if it's a complete, wrestling match and they're just kind of rolling around like, I don't know, it will be very, very underwhelming.
I swear to God, I'll give up on MMA if this is not if this is not fight of the night. Honestly, I cannot see anything other than these two absolutely trying to destroy one another. Like, when has Shane Burgos ever
take note
and not like come out of it looking like he's been hit by a train?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. These two guys are going to go in there and they're going to get some. Do you know what I mean? Edson Barboza with his razor blade kicks, man. Razor blade kicks. His striking is phenomenal. I think it will be a solid bout. And then moving up on the card as well, we've got Chookagian versus Arujo. Prath, what are you making of this fight? Chookagian is obviously on a bit of a run here. Arujo is also on a bit of a run here. They're both making a little bit of noise in their divisions. What are you thinking about this fight?
Yeah, man. What is this? This is a top 5. I wouldn't say top 5. Oh, Viviana Arujo is number 7.
Yep.
But, very much, if she wins this fight, she's very much in that title contention against the killer of all killers. Like, do we even really call her a contender at this point? We call her the next sacrificial lamb for young Valentina Shevchenko to sacrifice to the MMA gods. What does the winner get out of this fight? The winner gets the champion. The winner gets a loss on their record. I hate to play down the rest of the flyweight division, but just after watching that last fight with Andrade, like I didn't think that Andrade would be like Valentina's craziest fight or the most like anticipated fight, because I think obviously for me that is always going to be the Nunes fight. I don't think anyone else in the flyweight division gives her any trouble whatsoever. So what does the winner get from this fight? What are they both fighting for? They're both fighting to go and take another shot at Valentina. Well, for Chookagian to take another shot at Valentina, and for Arujo to come in.
Arujo.
It just sounds like we're kind of barking at our camera here.
Arugula. It's Arugula.
Arugula. But this in terms of flyweight fights, this is one of the better women's flyweight fights you're going to see outside of a title fight. Chukagian's got a great style. You know, she's one of Mark Henry's students, trains alongside Frankie Edgar and, you know, guys like, you know, used to be Marlon Moraes and Edson Barbosa. Yeah, you know, another one. New Jersey is rest in peace, unfortunately. She'll probably come out and like bust her leg up against Arujo. You know, I hope not. I'm not putting out there. I've got to stop talking about this because I'm hoping that nothing happens to any of these guys. I don't want that kind of trauma to anyone. I think Caitlin's probably going to win this fight. She's probably going to grind out a decision here. She'll probably just kind of wrestle, fuck her against the cage, and just kind of hold her in position and get off a few strikes. She reminds me a little bit of Holly Holm, but a very, very much more reserved Holly Holm.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I like it. I think it's going to be a good fight between these two women. And I think it will keep people awake as well. I think Chukagian is a good fighter. Arujo is a good fighter as well. I think they're going to put on a show. And, you know, I feel like there's so much pressure on the women's divisions, especially when they're on the main card. They're in the middle of the main card as well, because the MMA community sees it as, right, let me go for a quick nap. Whereas, you know, these two women are going to really put some sparks out there. George, what are you thinking?
I was just thinking, like, if Arujo does come through to beat Chukagian, everyone is going to go, this is it. This is Valentina's kryptonite. This is the girl. This is going to be the one. Let's book her in the fight. I can just see it now. I don't look at me like that. I'm not saying it's me. Like, Valentina will beat her, but you know what it'll be? The narrative will start that because she's beaten a top contender and her record is actually quite impressive. I think it's like, 11-2 at the moment, or 10-2. It's pretty decent record. Like, I think the narrative will start that she is the biggest problem to Valentina. You know, which, you know, we don't know. She might be, but I don't think she is. I don't think Valentina gets beaten by anybody apart from Nunes.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed we see some sparks flying at the weekend, and hopefully these women can put on a great event. My question to you both before we get into the co-main and main event, is Mark Smith is probably going to be a ref this weekend. Prath, give me your predictions on the worst thing that could possibly happen. Doesn't matter to who. It seems every weekend we see some sort of cup check. Every weekend we saw a couple of bad ones this weekend. And we see some mad stuff. Prath, tell me what you're thinking. And then George will go straight to you after, man. We've seen broken legs. We've seen, you know, snapped orbitals. We've seen some mad stuff going on.
You know
what's happening this weekend?
I'm going to go slightly outside of the box. One we haven't seen. I feel like something's going to happen with the corner coming into a round. When they're about to start another round, the corner, trying to get the corner out of the cage, trying to get the stool out. I think an ice pack will break, and Mark Smith's going to try and clean it up, and then it's going to just cause mayhem.
Old school. I like it. You know what? We're going to keep doing this every episode now, and one day we will get it right. George, what you got? What's happening in the Mark Smith nightmare?
I'll tell you what's happened this weekend. Joshua Fabio is going to morph himself into Mark Smith, and he's going to cause havoc inside there. He's going to become some kind of demon referee, and he's going to start chasing these two fighters around, doing crazy shit to them. This is what's going to happen. Mark Smith is basically he's basically being used as like I don't know how to describe it. A puppet, yeah, a puppet by this mental geezer from wherever he's from, New Mexico or somewhere.
Nice. So what you're saying is Joshua Fabio is going to put a Mark Smith mask on and just start punching Shane Burgos in the head just at random intervals throughout the fight.
You ever watched Game of Thrones with the many faces?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what we're talking about right now. We're talking about that kind of stuff. We're talking about the guy, many face. Like Mark Smith's face will just come off, and it'll be Fabio.
I like it.
Like, holy shit!
Yeah, I don't think any bookies are going to take bets on that, but you never know. We've seen some mad stuff in the MMA cages, and we've seen some mad stuff going on recently. You just do not know. We're in 2021, man. Anything could happen. Anything could happen. What we're also going to see this weekend is Tony Ferguson take another L, I believe, because he's up against Benny Dariush. What are we thinking here, guys? Because Tony Ferguson is obviously El Kukui. His training regimes and his workout methods are beyond anyone's kind of mental imagination of what he's doing. He's doing some crazy stuff. I watched a video of him. I think he was at a press conference or something, and he was kind of doing over and unders on like a a railing thing. It was all go. This guy is insane. Got cardio for days. He's got heart for days. But we've seen him take a couple of L's recently. We've seen him take a couple of bad L's, you know. Prath, where do you see this going? Because Benny Dariush on a big run. This guy is making serious noise in the division. Do you think Benny can carry it on? Do you think he's going to make his way towards title contention? Do you think T. Ferg turns back the clock and puts on a great performance this weekend as he's done in the past?
Interesting fight. It's going to be interesting to see where Tony Ferguson is and what he looks like, what he feels like. I think we'll be able to tell a lot from the fight week, media and watching his interviews and seeing what his kind of mental headspace is at. I think when you watch him in the other, the Justin lead up and who was the other one he just lost to? Charlie Olives. Yeah.
Olives, yeah.
In the build up to both of those fights, I felt like he was a different version to the Tony that we've seen previously. A little bit more, you know, the Tony that we're used to seeing is very much more cerebral, calculated, and just like a workhorse. And I didn't really get that from the last couple of fight lead ups, the week of anyway. Like I didn't see, you know, no one really sees any of Tony Ferguson's training, apart from the clips that he puts out of him like kicking a pipe and stuff like that. That's the only stuff that you really see of Tony Ferguson. But that's all I that's all I could surmise. And then he lost those two fights. Tony Ferguson for me has always been my favorite UFC lightweight fighter. Bar none. I love Khabib, I love Conor, I love all these other guys, but for me, I've always loved Tony Ferguson's style, the submissions. The Darce choke is actually one of my favorite chokes, and that's like one of Tony Ferguson's like primo chokes. He goes for that quite a lot. He's got a really interesting attitude to the game and life in general, very philosophical. You know, when you listen to his interviews, it's always like a listening point for most people. Stop what you're doing and listen to this Tony Ferguson interview, because you're probably going to pick up some jewels from there. There's some craziness for sure. There's definitely some craziness, but there is definitely going to be some jewels as well. And he does put out a lot of, you know, weird stuff he reads online, and he puts it out there in his interviews. So it's always interesting to see. I think we're going to be able to tell a lot from Tony during the fight lead up. Benny Dariush is coming off of a great win streak himself. I'd be interested to see. This is a big test for him. I think this will really be able to tell folks whether Benny Dariush is ready for that top 5. If Tony Ferguson is done in the top 5, if he's done in the top 10 in general. I think that if Tony loses to Beneil here, there's no way he's going to be able to claw his way back up. And I think it's going to be one of those situations, unfortunately, like Anthony Pettis, like Yoel Romero, like Rumble Johnson, where they look at Tony Ferguson as a declining fighter and they'll ship him off to a PFL, a Bellator, a one championship, one of those ones. He will end up in there because they feel like he won't be able to recover. Not to say that losing to Beneil Dariush makes you a scrub in any way, shape, or form, because I think, you know, and I'm no offense to Alex Morono, but Cowboy Cerrone losing to Alex Morono, you've lost to a scrub. You're done. You're done, Cowboy. You're out of here. Love you, respect you, love everything you've done in your career, but you're done. This isn't the same thing. This isn't, if Tony Ferguson loses to Beneil Dariush, he's losing to a scrub. Beneil Dariush is a tough veteran, always comes to fight, great submissions, great stand-up, can take a shot and come back and fight and win, as you've seen from his last couple of fights. So this is a tough fight. Man, I want to, just because I believe in him, I want to say that Tony's going to win. I think he's going to win by Darce choke. I think he's going to get a submission. I think Beneil Dariush is going to come in knowing that he might have hurt Tony, try to go for a finish, and Tony just locks something up crazy in a scramble. That's what I'm thinking is probably going to happen there.
Now, I'm not saying Tony Ferguson isn't a finisher, and I'm not saying that Beneil Dariush isn't a finisher, but this is only a 3-round fight, okay? And we know Tony Ferguson, he needs them later rounds to kind of change into second to third gear and to really kind of get his arse into gear, essentially, and throw less sand at his opponent. But, George, how do you think this is going to play out? Obviously, Tony Ferguson's having a 3-round fight. Do you think he can get the momentum quick enough to be able to put his mark onto Beneil Dariush before Beneil Dariush puts his mark onto Tony Ferguson? And as we know, Tony Ferguson needs a lot of damage before he gives up. And he didn't even give up against Justin Gaethje. You know, he was just getting completely battered, and it was the referees. You know, fair play to the ref. I can't remember who that was. I think it might have been Herb Dean, and just said, "Look, you've had enough now. You know, you've had enough. We're gonna stop this. We don't need to see any more." Similar to Cowboy at the weekend. Cowboy could have taken a few more shots. He didn't go down, but at the end of the day, the refs are giving him a little bit of grace and kind of thinking, you know what, you don't need to take too much. But George, nevertheless, give me your 2 cents on this, my friend, and tell me if you think Tony Ferguson can speed up and get it done inside the distance.
Right, look, well, first of all, there's no quitting Tony Ferguson because, like you said about the Gaethje fight, he wouldn't give up there. He almost had his arm snapped in half by Charlie Olives, and only the end of the round stopped it. And if it wasn't going to be the end of the round, it would have been the referee. He wasn't going to quit there. You know, there's heart inside of him. But and like Prath said, I love Tony Ferguson. He's one of the reasons, one of the athletes in this sport that got me properly into this sport. You know, and going off topic a little bit, I even make a beer in my brewery named after him. I make a nice fresh lime pale ale called El Kukui. You know, I love the guy, but what I've realized over the last couple of fights, and at the age Tony Ferguson is now, that you can't fight like this all the time, and in the end, it's going to take its toll. And I think we're seeing the relentless nature of how he fights finally taking its toll. And I hate to say it, but I think we're starting to see the sad ending of Tony Ferguson. And I think it will be pretty much confirmed on Saturday night. I actually think, I'm going to go the other way around. I actually think Beneil Dariush is going to submit Tony Ferguson on Saturday. And I think it's going to be a pretty sad... It'll be a sad sight. I'll be gutted. But I think Dariush is on the rise at the moment. I think he's finally proving to people that he is this real dangerous competitor. And this is the chance now. This is the moment. You've been calling for the big fight. You've got the big fight, numbered card, pay-per-view, in full crowd. You've got the whole lot. You know, you've literally got the home run opportunity now. You've got to take it. And Tony Ferguson needs to take it, though. He needs to take this because if he loses 3 in a row, people start, like you just said, Prath, people will start saying, is this guy even top 10 anymore? Now that is, who would have thought 12 months ago we'd be saying that? Is Tony Ferguson even a top 10 guy? It's crazy what's happened. But I just think that all this constant, relentless, like war that he's been in basically for the last 8-10 years, I think it's finally caught up with him. I think it's finally caught up with the body. It's finally caught up with the mind. And I think he's entering into a cage on Saturday night with a guy who is 7-8 years younger than him, who's on a good winning streak. And I think he knows that he can beat Tony Ferguson. That's why he's been calling for the fight. I think he knows he's got his number. And I just feel that Beneil Dariush is going to submit him. It's going to be really sad to see. But do you know what? At the same time, Dariush has deserved this, man. He's worked his way up quietly. He's taken fights against guys who perhaps he shouldn't have had fights with because he's been better than them. And he deserves the chance now to say, do you know what? I'm a top 5 guy here. You know, I deserve big, big fights. And if you come through Tony Ferguson, you know, you're looking at some big fights. I mean, Justin Gaethje hasn't got a fighter booked at the moment. Are we looking at a Dariush Gaethje kind of fight further down the line this year? You know, something like that. You know, I think it's huge for both people. For both fighters, it's massive. But like I can't look past that. I just think that I think old father time, has caught up with Tony Ferguson. I think it's starting to ever so slightly feel uncomfortable now.
I'm with you. And I think a lot of the MMA community as well will see that. Tony Ferguson has visually aged quite a lot, it would seem, over the past 3 years. And he took a very, very serious amount of damage in his last couple of fights. And, you know, it's one of them things, as Prath said earlier, it's kind of, we have these old generational fighters and sometimes the new guys just need to come in, and the UFC are putting a lot of time into the preliminary cards because these are the next up and comers. And sometimes the main event is sometimes an older fighter, you know, that is on the way out. They want to have their couple of main events and they want to be sailing off into the sunset. I think if he takes the L here, he should definitely have a look at retiring or moving into a different organization. But after his last 2 losses, I believe it does. He runs his own gym, right? So he does his own training camps, or he doesn't fight with anyone or out of anywhere. So maybe look at getting getting some people in training at somewhere that could give him a different definition of what he's doing.
I just wanted to say, like Prath guy, I just want to say that this sport does not write happy endings. It does not. I can't think of many fighters who have walked away from this with the ending that they want. I just don't. And as much as we all love Tony Ferguson and we all love what he's done for this sport and appreciate what he's done, and he's been unbelievable at times. That 12-fight winning streak was incredible. This sport does not write happy endings, and we're seeing it play out in front of our eyes with Tony Ferguson, another legend again. And like I said, other fighters, up-and-coming killers, know and see it. They see the weakness, and Dariush is seeing the weakness. And I just don't think the happy ending is going to be written for him, sadly.
Just the one thing I wanted to note was that I know that during this particular fight camp that Tony Ferguson has been working with Freddie Roach out of Wildcard Boxing. So I do believe that he has changed it up somewhat. Yeah. And is got regular training partners and things of that nature, which I don't believe he was using before. I don't believe he was even sparring before.
Yeah, for the past two. I've been past Wildcard, actually. I went through there when I was there in the States. It looked a bit dingy, to be honest with you, from the outside. But, these kind of places, sometimes they look dingy from the outside. You go in, it's just a grindhouse. It really is.
It's all about heart and soul. It's heart and soul inside.
Yeah, it's a Rocky Balboa moment, it really will be.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for Tony Ferguson the weekend anyway. It's going to be a tough fight, and I think it's going to be a fantastic bout between these two gentlemen. Fingers crossed it doesn't finish too early or it doesn't finish too late. Do you know what I mean? Usually if we don't see a KO in the first round, it's coming early second. If it's not early second, we're looking at a decision. But one of them needs to make a bit of noise to gain the popularity back, I think. Like we said about Michael Page over the weekend, what does this guy have to do to gain some popularity? He's getting finishes and he's not going to decisions, but Tony Ferguson needs to get a decision, not a decision to be able to kind of, if he scrapes out a decision win, it's going to be like, oh, cool, he still needs to retire, but we'll have to wait and see. His former opponent, Charlie Olives, is fighting on the main event of this card. I am well excited for this, mainly because whenever I tweet Charles Oliveira, he always replies or he likes it, which is great. It's great to see that the man still spends a bit of time on social media and replies to fans. We've spoken about this before on this show. It's lovely when fighters still have the time to reply and have a bit of connection with fans as well. And I love that kind of vibe. Not to say that Michael Chandler doesn't. I've never tweeted him. I don't really, why would I? I don't know. I'm not a massive fan of Michael Chandler. Prath, tell me, what we obviously spoke about it earlier and whether you think that this should be a title fight or not. You obviously said it should be a title fight. I completely agree. Conor and Dustin are going to go and get red panty night this summer, which we're all looking forward to as well because Conor is a finisher. Dustin is a finisher. Both of these gentlemen are finishers. Prath, tell me, who do you think is going to win this weekend and who is going to be their immediate competition straight away after that victory? Who are they going to call out when they take the belt?
Well, thankfully, both of these guys are finishers. So we will see, I think, not a close fight. I think it's going to be one way or the other. It's going to be very hard to know straight out of the gate who's going to take control of this fight. I thought last time when Chandler was fighting Dan Hooker that Dan Hooker might have taken a bit more of the lead of the fight and then had Michael Chandler kind of on the counter, but it was the other way around. It's actually Michael Chandler pushing forward with Dan Hooker on the counter. So it's going to be interesting to see the juxtaposition of who kind of takes that immediate pressing forward kind of motion. And I think that will kind of tell a lot about this fight because I don't think Charlie Olives does particularly well when he is the one being pressured. I always find that Charlie Olives is the best when he's coming forward, but also the best when he's just pushing them up against the cage, grabbing them, putting them down. And then as soon as they've got him on the ground, he's just like, man, you want to just talk about beautiful jiu-jitsu, just flows so naturally over an opponent with little thought. Like the technique is subliminal, like from someone on the outside looking in at someone like that, just flowing like they do in the cage when they've got someone on the ground. It's phenomenal to watch. It's phenomenal to see how like the mind works in that sense, like the mind, how he's like kind of breaking it down bit by bit, and just the small movements as he takes the back and as he sinks in a choke, and then that one doesn't work, so I'm going to go to the armbar. Okay, that doesn't work. I'm going to go to the kimura. That one doesn't work. I'm going to just at least get control. Like there are very little amount. There's very few guys in the UFC in general that have the technical prowess like a Charles Oliveira, like a Damian Maia, that just flows so naturally. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to even get Chandler down. So I know Chandler's got fantastic takedown defense, and just presses forward. Like I think Chandler is going to be able to land some big shots here. Charlie Olives has been finished before, so it's not one of those ones where like we're waiting to see if this is the first time he takes a defeat. Charlie Olives has been there and done that quite a few times. So I do believe the bigger question mark is on Michael Chandler here, and what he's going to do. Is he going to come out like the same way he did against Dan Hooker, very ultra aggressive, throw in like big hooks and overhands, you didn't see many straight punches out of Michael Chandler in that fight, loads of looping shots. Do we see that out of this fight here with Oliveira? I think if Oliveira is able to kind of keep his distance a little bit, wear Michael Chandler out a little bit, stop the stinging from those punches, and then is able to kind of take him into the third, fourth, and fifth. And I think he could maybe get a late submission here if he's really, really opportunistic, really, is patient with it, because, especially, when you come out in that first round, you come out like a bull in a china shop, right? Both guys are just coming out to like make their stamp on the fight. And I think if Charles can kind of weather the storm a little bit, be a bit more defensively responsible than he is used to, because I think in past fights where I've watched Oliveira, he's taken a lot of damage. He's taken a lot of strikes to the face on the ground. When he's trying to set things up, he's trying to set up something from his back. He's trying to goad them into an armbar, goad them into something where he can switch the position. He ends up taking a lot of damage from those positions. And I don't think he's going to want to take a lot of damage from Michael Chandler, because Michael Chandler hits like a truck. So I think it's going to be a very, very tight fight. I'm going to go for Charlie Olives here. I love his style. I love his approach. I love the way that he presents himself as a fighter, his attitude. I think he's ready to take that position. He's ready to take that position as the king of that division. I think he has really proven in that Tony Ferguson fight that he is a step above the average UFC lightweight. And not to say that the a regular UFC lightweight would not struggle with these top 5 fighters. I think that Charlie Olives now has leveled up. He's faced the big boss of level 1, which was Tony Ferguson, and he has now progressed to level 2. And Michael Chandler is waiting for him at the end of that level, and it's going to be a tough fight. But I think Charlie Olives has the skill set to really wear Michael Chandler out, take him to those later rounds, and potentially submit him.
I'm with you. I like it. It's a good view of what could happen this weekend, but calling Michael Chandler the big boss, I think is a little bit deluded, because the man's like 5'8", right? He's not the big boss. He's shorter than the average man.
Metaphorically, the big boss of level 2.
No, I'm completely with you, man. I rewatched the Michael Chandler versus Dan Hooker fight a couple of times, and you could see he was really, really loading up the left hand when he was kind of like bouncing round. You could see he was almost like halfway throwing it every single time.
Yeah,
exactly, bobbing up and down. But really, he was strumming the left hand. Sorry, just ready to throw it at any point. And Dan Hooker was very hesitant towards that. I think Charlie Olives is going to be a little bit more wise to that. I think he's going to come in and, like you say, he's going to put the work on. He's going to keep his distance. I think this will be a chess match. I really do. I think it's going to be a chess match. George, do you think that Charlie Olives has got a padded record? I've seen a lot of stuff over the past couple of weeks about Charlie Olives having a bit of a padded record. He's only really beaten 2 or 3 killers in his previous fights. What's your take on that?
No, I don't buy into that. I think anyone that has a 8-fight winning streak in the UFC is no joke. You're in the best promotion for mixed martial arts in the world, and and like I said last night on the podcast, you can only beat what's in front of you. Mm-hmm. He's on an 8-fight winning streak, and he completely deserves to be here in the title fight. Chandler has got his way to a title fight after 1 fight for different reasons. Like I said at the start of this podcast, because he's sweet talked his way there. He's been the yes man, which is cool. Like he's, that's got him to the point where he is. And obviously on top of that, he had that amazing victory over Hooker, which we weren't all quite expecting. I certainly wasn't. I'm a little bit annoyed about the build up to this fight though, because it feels like everyone's just crowning Chandler like already. It feels like it's kind of the coronation for Chandler. Like this is just but it's like, I think people are forgetting about Charles Oliveira in a way. They kind of write him off, for whatever reason, maybe, trains in Brazil, doesn't speak English, maybe the padded record thing is, playing into that, I actually think that when I think about the fight, I actually think that Chandler will come out the same kind of way. He'll put the pressure on early because, like Prath said, it has been known in the past that Charles Oliveira maybe has given up when he's taken heavy punches. There's been times where perhaps he's quit on himself more than anything else. I actually think the most important thing here is in the early part of this fight is that Oliveira manages his range really quite well, because he's obviously going to be a much taller and longer fighter. And if he's able to do that and perhaps initially uses his kickboxing to kind of wear Chandler down a little bit, it's possible that then would lead to a potential victory, which would obviously put more like come via submission towards the later rounds. I think he's going to have to be quite clever. I think, like Prath said, I think you're going to have to just weather the storm, because Chandler's going to come up like a rocket in this fight. I think the crowd will be absolutely all in for him. I think all week you're going to hear, it's all going to be Chandler all week long. All week it's going to be Chandler at the press conference. All the questions to Chandler. It's all going to be on him. Like I said, it feels to me personally like this is just a coronation for Chandler. This is just a turn up, get in the cage and get the job done. I think it's way harder than that. I think Oliveira has shown that in the last 8 fights that he's very clever. He is able to manage fights better than perhaps he was previously to that. And I'm going to go with Prath as well. I think at some point later on in the fight, I think he'll find a way to get it done, Oliveira, and I think he will submit Michael Chandler. That's where I'm going to go with it as well. I can't deny either. I like Michael Chandler, and I've written that guy off way too many times in his career, and maybe I should learn my lesson, and he might prove me wrong again on Saturday night. But Charles Oliveira has been in the UFC a long time. I think he deserves to be a UFC champion. I think he's got an all-round skill set that causes people a lot of problems going forwards. Chandler, though, from a promotional point of view, from like Dana's like mindset, Chandler wins and you can put him up against the Poirier or McGregor later on this year. Man, that's fantastic for the UFC. But yeah, I think round 4, I'll go with round 4 submission for Charlie Olives.
Just a quick point I wanted to make, just 2 things, is the everyone should not discredit the fact that Khabib as well, one of the last fights that he was even kind of mentioning that he would even come back for, one of them was Charles Oliveira, because he recognizes how good he is. And the second thing about his padded record is that, he doesn't get to choose who he fights, right? They'll just present him with a fight. He'll say yes or no, right? But historically, Charlie Oliveira has always been one of the tougher guys to get a matchup, because they want to get him against a top-ranked fighter, but nobody wants to take that fight because they know how good he is. They know how much of a threat on the ground he is. So it was always really hard for him to get fights. And when he got the big fights, the Paul Felders, he lost. Anthony Pettis, he lost. When he got to those big fights, he would tend to lose those fights. So they could only match him up against the guys that nobody else wanted to fight either. So, padded record, I agree that, maybe his record isn't, especially the last 5, 5, 6, 7 fights that he's won. There's only 2 or 3 or 4 notable names out of that. But again, that's not down to him. He has to just show up and perform. He doesn't choose who he fights. So for all the people out there saying that he's got a padded record, screw you.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. It's one of them things, isn't it, that no one can ever do anything. Everyone's always going to be upset with whatever anyone does. We've spoken about a few fighters over the weekend that have been fighting, and it's like, what do you want these people to do? They're literally gladiators going out there and fighting whoever they put in front of them, and they need to do what they need to do to get the win and to get their money and to support their lifestyle that they're living. So essentially, Doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't matter if you've got a padded record. The people that he was fighting were in there trying to kill him just as much as he was trying to kill them. You know, hit me, George.
I was just going to say, and just like when you think about both these guys, this is just unknown waters for both of them. You know, I know that Chandler has been a champion in Bellator, but this does not compare to what he will face on Saturday night. This is the biggest moment of Michael Chandler's career. How does Michael Chandler handle this pressure? This is a huge, especially when people are saying, most people are saying they think Chandler will win. This is a huge pressurized situation. How does he handle it? I think that's just as big a question is that how does Charles Oliveira go into this, you know, in a title fight that he's worked so hard to get for? Look, I'm not taking anything away from Chandler. A Bellator champion is an unbelievable achievement, but like I keep on saying, a numbered card on pay-per-view in front of 17,000 fans, you know, in Houston, this for the lightweight title, this is big time. This is big time. You know, how do you handle that? You know, and we'll see. And I just feel if he can navigate his way through the first 15 minutes, Oliveira, he can really start to take over in those championship rounds.
No, I think it's going to be, you know, fingers crossed it will be fireworks. Fingers crossed the whole card is fireworks. You know, the past two cards that we've had at the weekends have not been the most fireworks cards we could have had, but it's one of them things. You know, we've really just got to hope that these guys all go into it fit and healthy as well. We've still got a little bit of time until the fights actually happen. Obviously, they're this weekend. It's only Monday. So fingers crossed, all of these fighters can stay fit and healthy. Everyone makes weight. Unlike last week, we had a few big weight misses as well. And hopefully everyone can come into it fit and healthy and put on fantastic performances. My one question to you two honourable gentlemen is, the UFC machine is obviously going to be wanting Chandler to win this so they can have an American champion and an English-speaking champion. If Charlie Olives wins, obviously his English is not the best, but when he speaks Portuguese, he speaks like he is rapping. Do you know? He is so quick when he does his interviews, and if anything, it's more entertaining than someone that's speaking English anyway. Prath, do you think that Charlie Olives will get how can I put this? The respect he deserves, even though he's got a translator? Because if my memory serves me, I think like 9 out of 10 of the current champions are all English speaking or have developed being English speaking since becoming champion. Do you think that Charlie Olives needs to learn better English if he becomes champion of the weekend?
I don't think it hurts, but I don't think it makes a difference. Just look at the other big champion that won over the weekend. Look at Canelo Alvarez. Doesn't really speak much English, but is just such a revered star around the world. And I think that's purely because of the amount of promotional hype he has behind him. If the UFC gets behind Charlie Oliveira, like the way that, you know, DAZN, DAZN, Golden Boy get behind Canelo Alvarez, you could see an giant star around the world. I think you're absolutely right in when he speaks on his post-fight interview, he speaks at like 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I think that's something that's a very cool characteristic for him, because you can tell how passionate he is. He doesn't just say it, he's saying it at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but you can feel the passion coming from him, especially when it comes to, you know, what was it when it was the Tony fight, he won the Tony fight, the passion coming out of him for wanting to go for the title was so just, I could feel it. I didn't even need to know what he was saying. I could feel the passion. I knew exactly what he was saying. I didn't need a translator. I could just say, okay, he could have gone blah, 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 blah. He wants to fight for a title. I know he wants to fight for a title, and I know he's very passionate about fighting for the title. So I think if the UFC can, and I think the other thing that is very underrated that I think not many people really notice or care about, but does make a difference, is having the right translator in the octagon with him when he wins, right? Having them be able to portray that emotion. Like for me, one of the two great translators, which is crazy to say here that I'm actually bringing this up, that we're talking about a translator in the octagon, but Yoel Romero has an incredible translator that speaks doesn't just speak passionately about what Yoel Romero is saying, but translates it in a way that makes you feel what Yoel Romero is saying. Same thing with Zhang Weili. When Zhang Weili when she beat Joanna, she had the translator come into the octagon, and he was almost crying like at how proud he was of her. And you could feel that emotion of what it means to China for her to win that title, for her to win that match. So I think that is also as crazy as it is to say it. And I think if you really want Oliveira to be a star, that's the first place that people are going to be able to watch him and go, okay, this guy is someone that we need to get behind. And I think that stems primarily from the translator. When the translator is giving that message out, the same way as Charlie Oliveira, right? Charlie Oliveira is speaking at million miles an hour. He's got the championship belt wrapped around him. He's going crazy. He's so excited. He's so happy. He's just achieved all of his goals. I want to feel that from the translator as well, because I think then the world will feel it as well.
No,
I don't know if that makes sense, but for me, that does.
Sense. Yeah, and Zhang Wei Li, her translator, I thought he let her down a little bit because he was too excited. He was too emotionally invested. Yeah. He was so emotionally invested that he was like, I'm just so happy. He was like,
but you got what it meant. You got what it meant to China, though.
Absolutely, and to him, and to the team, and to them as a group of people. You know, I don't know if it was an actual translator for her or if it was genuinely just one of her corner that speaks better English. But I'm completely with you, and I completely understand where you're coming from, man. George, my question to you before we finish off the episode is, obviously having a crowd back, we've got an American fighter, Mr. All-American, you know, versus a Brazilian fighter. Are we going to get the classic USA when Charlie Olives walks to the ring?
Yeah, of course we are. We're in Texas. Yeah, of course we are. We're deep south, man. I've been to Houston a couple of times in my life, and let me tell you, they're all right, but they love America. 100% they're chanting USA. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. But just quickly on the translator thing as well, Canelo, when he spoke English in his press conference afterwards this weekend, was fantastic. When he was telling Demetrius Andrade to go fuck himself in English,
really well.
Was brilliant. It was fantastic. I don't think that Charles Oliveira needs to learn English. I think it does help, like Prath said, but I don't think it's necessary. And what I like about when you hear him speak Portuguese is, you said passionate. I think he sounded pissed. I think he sounded pissed off. Because I was like, well, what more have I got to fucking do, basically, to like, before I get some like respect and get my title shot. So I quite like it when they speak in their, you know, in their like native language, like, you know, for Oliveira Portuguese or Wei Li Chinese. I think you can hear, like you said, I guess the word is passion. I just, for the last couple of times with Oliveira, all I've got is, I'm really pissed off that I keep on winning and I'm not getting my chance. Well, your chance is here now, Charlie. So good luck to you on Saturday night.
Let's go. I think Portuguese people, you know, I've worked with a lot of Portuguese people in the past, and they could be telling you, I'm your best friend, I really love everything you do. And it just sounds like they'd want to murder your entire family. I think Portuguese just one of them languages, man. It's like German. Sometimes it just comes off so harsh. They could be saying really nice things to you, but it just, sometimes the way, it's very kind of difficult to get that interpretation from him. But no, I'm with you, man. I really felt the passion, and it did seem like he was annoyed. And sometimes, Prath, like you say, I couldn't agree more. Sometimes it would be better to get a more emotional translator. I would be the worst translator ever because of the very, very few emotions that I can portray on my face. You know, I might be a translator. Who knows, just with this amount of emotion. But, you know, if they were to get someone that could literally go word for word and just speak really excited, you know, I've had friends of mine that I've sent them clips of Charles Oliveira and various different Portuguese-speaking people, and she's translated it back to me. And the translator misses half the things that they're saying. You know, they could say like, oh, it was a really great fight. I did everything I could, blah, blah, blah. And they'll go into loads of detail. And then all of a sudden the translator's just going, it was a great fight. We're really looking forward to the next one. And you think you're selling them short, you know, you really are selling them short because they're not getting everything that they want to get out there. Nevertheless, we will see what happens at the weekend with this fight. I'm going to go the other way from both of you, two honourable gentlemen, and I'm going to go with Michael Chandler getting the W here. Now, I'm not, I lied. Mamma mia. No, I'm not. I think Charlie Olives is going to take this. I think it's going to be a second or third round submission from Charlie Olives. Fingers crossed he can weather the storm. And I think it's going to be something unusual It won't just be an arm bar. It won't just be a triangle. It won't just be a head and arm choke, whatever. It will be something like a random heel hook. I think Chandler's going to overcommit to some of his wrestling. I think Charlie Olives is very slippery. He's a very slimy little gentleman. I think he's going to be able to turn it around, maybe go for some sort of crazy Imanari roll, wrap up a leg, grab a heel, do something. I think it's going to be something that we don't usually see every week. But I'm really excited for that fight. I'm really excited to not stay up for it. I'm going to watch it in the early hours of the morning. First thing, as soon as I did that this weekend, as soon as I cracked my eyes open, I had it on my phone and I was like, what's going on? I need to see everything that happened. But I'm really looking forward to breaking down the fights as well after this weekend's fights. And I'm just excited. I'm just excited to see some good, solid fights. I feel like we've been a little bit let down by the UFC the past couple of weeks with regards to the content that they've been putting out. But I'm looking forward to breaking down this weekend's fights with you guys on Sunday. As always, thank you very much for joining in to the Fight and Talk 2 show. Prath, thank you very much for being the eloquent analyst over there, as always, and giving your 2 cents on the fights coming up. We do have merchandise. If anyone wants to check out the merchandise, visit the Etsy. I will put a link in the description below. We have beanie hats. Naturally, because of the British weather that we're having at the moment, which is awful, a beanie hat would come in handy. And we also have some T-shirts. Shout out to everyone that's been buying the T-shirts over in the States, New Jersey, Texas, Houston. I don't know, man. I'm sending them out, but it's great that they're going across the world, which is fantastic to see. George, in Casual Corner, thank you as ever for being a fantastic co-host of the show. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you very much. Peace out.